வெல்கம் டு கலோரி பாய்ஸ். நான் உங்க இளைய பாரதி. இன்னைக்கு நம்ம எஸ்எஸ் ராஜமௌலி அவரோட படம், எல்லா படமும் ரேங்க்டு, எவ்ரி ஃபிலிம் ரேங்க், எவ்ரி எஸ்எஸ் ராஜமௌலி ஃபிலிம் ரேங்க்டு ஃபிலிம் கம்பெனி சவுத், அந்த வீடியோ அவங்க போட்டிருக்க வீடியோ தான் பார்க்க போகிறோம். நான் அந்த வீடியோ லிங்க் கீழே கொடுக்குறேன். ஓகே, டைம் வேஸ்ட் பண்ணாமல் வீடியோக்குள்ளே போகலாம் வாங்க.
Before I begin this list ranking SS Rajamouli's films, it's important to understand what kind of a filmmaker I think he is. Therefore, you can understand how I'm rating the stories he tells and the criteria I've used and avoided. There's a certain outlandishness to Rajamouli's films that people are never able to comprehend. Why is it that 2 decades and 12 films later, you're still finding yourself whistling at the moments he creates?
Yeah,
even if most of us sometimes feel we're above masala films. What separates him from the other big mainstream filmmakers of his era? I think the answer lies in the fact that Rajamouli is not just India's biggest director, but he's also India's biggest teller of folk tales. He's not just trying to root his films in realism, but he's trying to land them on
storytelling
such as love, anger, revenge, justice, and then take them to an exaggerated space folk tales exist in. It's not enough to say the villain was ferocious. It has to be, he is such a bad guy, he could beat a wild bull with his bare fist and bring it down without breaking into a sweat. Rajamouli excels compared to his contemporaries because he's not asking the question of whether good will win over evil. Everyone knows who will win, but it's how they win and what they lose that matters. That is important to Rajamouli, and that is where his words cause such madness among viewers. Each movie is being ranked by how well Rajamouli achieves this, with a focus on how such an idea is brought. Position is of course his debut film, Student Number 1. It's no surprise that Rajamouli's debut is his weakest film. Even though one can see that there are hints of what's going to come from him in that thrilling interval twist.
First film NTR adu theriyadhu enakku.
When he goes home, he is going to the city central.
Junior NTR.
It's a stunning revelation that shocks you and sets up what should be a fantastic second half. But the problem is that the flashback never really delivers on the punch the first half promises. NTR Jr., who was all of 16 and his voice is barely cracked in this film, tries his best to shoulder the emotion of a student who wants to achieve his father's dreams of becoming a lawyer, but he's far too young to carry the second half. Only in the end does Rajamouli have a Rajamouli-esque sequence where NTR emerges from fire, being literally on fire himself. Here, NTR Jr. is more comfortable with this depiction of heroism, even though it's ways beyond his years. Barring a few ideas, which only a few and it's clearly Rajamouli's poorest film. The 11th placed film on this list is Yamadonga. I'm prepared for all the hate I'm going to get from NTR Jr.'s fans, but this one is easily Rajamouli's weakest story. It's odd that Rajamouli reserved his weakest story for NTR Jr., whom he considers his favorite actor. Rajamouli has rarely delivered linear films without giving a flashback or giving his leading men the chance to play two characters. He always tries to ensure
that his
protagonists die at the altar of having clear goals and having many obstacles in their path. But in this film, it is obvious that Rajamouli is itching to get to the segments involving hell and show us the confrontation between Yama and Raja. He constantly breaks the rules of his universe when he needs to propel the dull screenplay forward. And this is the only film where all the lead actors have saved Rajamouli rather than the other way around. And once the portions in hell are done, they're over much sooner than you would have liked them. Yamadanga delves into cliches and melodrama unlike what you expect from Rajamouli. The 10th placed film in this list is Simhadri. First and foremost, I know this film established the legendary status of
Junior NTR film
Telugu cinema at the age of 19. This film is one of those where NTR Jr. again saves Rajamouli with his commitment to the slightly oafish but highly principled titular character who believes in the utilitarian idea that one must be ready to die or kill if it benefits a larger group. There are elements that exhibit why Rajamouli respects masala moments and tries his best to imagine them with freshness. But Simhadri has not aged well despite many such adrenaline-pumping moments in the second half. Rajamouli has always used the torture of women and children as a way to amp up villainism, but nowhere is it uglier than in Simhadri. It feels unnecessary given that the initial portions of courting between Simhadri and the heroine seem equally crass. 9th place in this list is Chhatrapati. No other film of Rajamouli is as uneven as Chhatrapati. And that's primarily because of how much story and masala Rajamouli
இது எல்லாமே அவரோட பழைய படங்களா தான் இருக்கு.
Such great moments that it culminates into what is modern Telugu cinema's massiest interval block that hasn't been beaten to date. Keeravani's score, Prabhas's commitment to the part, the way Sendil Kumar's camera celebrate the star's physique, and the performance of other actors like Shafi, LB Sriram, Kota Srinivas Rao and Shekhar leaves you worried that you might be hospitalized if the second half has more
இந்த எந்த
substance.
படமும் நான் பார்த்தது இல்லை ஆக்சுவலா.
Thankfully, it goes into an Amma sentiment zone, and even a menacing Raj Bihari Bose played by Pradeep Rawat
எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு மகதீரா, அப்புறம் பாகுபலி 1, பாகுபலி 2, பாகுபலி 1, ஈகா, அப்புறம் ட்ரிபிள் ஆர். ஐ திங்க் அந்த ஆர்டர்ல தான் இருக்கும் நினைக்கிறேன். ஆட் வந்துருச்சு.
back to life in a new avatar.
5
We have a past which the audience finds usually at the midpoint of the screenplay. Here he opts for a template of the 80s and 90s to express the duality where Ravi Teja plays two characters, Attali Satti and Vikram Rathore, who are lookalikes, and the former goes into the place of the latter. The success of this film lies in casting Ravi Teja and squeezing dry his comic timing for the thief and his serious side to play the cop. It is tailor-made for Ravi Teja, and one could go as far as to say that there hasn't been a better marriage between an actor and the role they played in any Rajamouli film since Vikramarkudu. But the film suffers from some cringe ideas of romance and a few vulgar scenes where Rajamouli dives into the ugly zone of putting women through immense torture to elevate a hero to a status. Seventh placed on this list is Maryada Ramanna. Although heavily borrowed from the English film Or Hospitality, this is one of Rajamouli's bravest films. He had just come off of the stupendous success of Magadhira, which is not only a point of inflection in his filmmaking abilities, but it also changed filmmakers to a director the country noticed. Maryada Ramanna's protagonist, Ramu, is stuck in the house of a family that wants to kill him. The family narrates his struggles.
இந்த சந்தானம் படம் இனிமே அது கிடையாதுல, அதுக்கு முன்னாடி வந்த படம்.
To remain alive. This is Rajamouli's simplest premise, and yet Rajamouli's penchant for bigness is visible on screen. Whether it's hundreds of car exploding as Sunil sings in existential frustration, or the final stretch where Ramu is being chased by hundreds of
இது இந்த படத்துல இருந்தானா?
clipping out of Discovery Channel where a gazelle is being hunted by a pack of cheetahs. This movie is a testament to Rajamouli's strength in visualizing a film's central conflict to its fullest and most masala-esque potential. The sixth placed film in this list is Sai. This is probably my most controversial opinion in this list, and that is that Sai is Rajamouli's most underrated film. The film is a sports revenge drama about the protagonist of a college taking on a local gunda once he threatens to take away their college. The protagonist
football player
is Rajamouli's weakest in terms of physical structure and the baggage the actor who plays him comes with. Until Ega, of course, but we'll get to that later. Prithvi is just a college student, especially the Telugu movie version of a college student. He rags juniors, takes college rivalries way too seriously, and wastes time performing stunts on his bike. In Sai, compared to the villain Bhikshu Yadav, who looks like an untamed beast, Prithvi looks boyish and immature, and we're not certain if good will overcome evil. This makes the difference between the protagonist and the antagonist the widest as compared to other Rajamouli's films. And Rajamouli has repeatedly stated that the one filmmaking principle that constantly runs in his head while making a film is the more ferocious the villain, the greater the hero. In no other film is the gap wider, which makes the final defeat of Bhikshu Yadav that much more cathartic. But the boldest choice was to use rugby and not cricket, football or hockey, and still not alienate the audience. The physicality of rugby works to the advantage of Rajamouli's school of masculinity. But to adapt it and sell it to the audience is a stroke of genius where others might not have. Without rugby, the film wouldn't seem
okay.
Fifth in this list is Bahubali, The Beginning. You knew that
fifth Bahubali
going to become a household name across the country was coming. It was not a question of
I think
but when.
not ஈகா ஃபர்ஸ்ட் சொல்ல போறாருன்னு நினைக்கிறேன்.
This film
இப்போ மாறிடுச்சு எனக்கு.
All the best tropes usually found in a Rajamouli film, which is why I think this film was better received outside the Telugu states. What felt fresh for others had a sense of familiarity for the Telugu audience. You have a superb opening sequence where Ramya Krishna walks into a gushing river with an arrow in her back to save a baby, which is Rajamouli's way of keeping us hooked till we hit the flashback. Then you have the massy superhero-esque introduction with Shivuru trying to climb a mountain, justifying his superhuman strength. And then the subsequent sequence where he uproots a Shivalingam achieves many things that are a staple of Rajamouli's films. இந்த இடத்தை மட்டும் சவுண்ட் குறைச்சாகணும். First, It lays the ground for the numerous mythological references and allusions to mythology that Rajamouli bestows upon his protagonist. 2. It has a high dosage of mother sentiment, pitting love for the mother against the devotion to God. And 3. For the Telugu audience, it is a hat tip to Prabhas's legacy as the nephew of Krishnam Raju, who played Bhakta Kannappa, a devotee of Shiva. Following that, there is the expected crass sequence with the woman protagonist as Shivru tries to tame Avantika that leads to a romance between them. If there is anything that can forgive the creepiness of the sequence, it's that Rajamouli convinces us that Tamanna can be a warrior. This was her most actorly part since Happy Days. All of this is in the first 30 odd minutes in the film. The introductions of each of the main characters such as Kattappa, Bhallala Deva and elderly Devasena all set up a large world as if Rajamouli is planning to write a third Hindu epic on par with Ramayana and Mahabharata. But this ambition is probably what lets the film down eventually, and I use the term let down in comparison to the films that rank higher on this list only. It feels like a giant setup to a punchline that is going to come in the second part. Number 4 on this list is Magadhira.
அது தப்பு
Magadhira
கிடையாது
is a
அது
clear point of
ஆக்சுவலா
inflection in Rajamouli's career, where you can see that he was
செட்டப் பண்ணிட்டு செகண்ட் பார்ட்ல டெலிவர் தான் பண்ணாரு.
contemporaries such as
மக்களுக்கு அது பிடிச்சிருந்தது.
Jagannath was struggling to make a mark after seemingly hitting their peaks. Rajamouli reached new ground in this epic reincarnation love.
சம படம் மகதீரா ஆக்சுவலா மாவீரன் நான் தமிழ் டப்பிங்ல பார்த்தேன்.
And Mitravinda, played by Kajal Agarwal, who are separated 400 years ago, only to be born again and face familiar obstacles. It's a story that showed Rajamouli's scale of ambition and that he demanded a bigger canvas to play with. The sequence that sets up Kala Bhairava's entry, his relationship with Mitravinda, the race with Randhev Bhalla, and the sequence
இதெல்லாம் எல்லாமே சம சீக்வென்ஸ் இதுல
are all examples of how to create masala moments that fit into the emotional arc of a story. The flashback sequence is a textbook for all budding writers and directors of masala films. And once the fight where Kala Bhairava battles 100 of Sher Khan's men begins, Rajamouli is in the kind of form the audience had only seen Sachin Tendulkar of the 90s. This is the film that defined the term Rajamouli standards. Third in this list is RRR. This film provides the best theatrical experience compared to any other Rajamouli film in that it never lets you take your eyes off the screen. That's primarily because of seeing two big stars, NTR Jr. and Ram Charan, play freedom fighters Komaram Bhim and Alluri Sita Ramaraju respectively.
எல்லாமே சம சீக்வென்ஸ் வரும்.
Unlike other Rajamouli films, and although odd at first, it was probably Rajamouli's way of telling fans of these actors to forget the stardom and the calculations of who gets how much time. He wanted the audience to only see Ramaraju and Bhim, and for the most part he's successful. Barring the Natu Natu song, there aren't any direct fan pleasing moments, and even here the fan pleasing is done right. You can't help but be in awe of the footwork of the two leads. The movie moves from set piece to set piece while giving the audience the perfect dosage of emotion to balance the aggression on screen. The strong motives of its characters justify each of Rajamouli's outlandishly imagined sequences. The collective gasp followed by a cheer in the theatre post the pre-interval sequence is
சம சீக்வென்ஸ் ஆக்சுவலா ஆட் வந்துருச்சு சாரி.
That is needed as proof to understand why Rajamouli's ideas thrive on the big screen. It's easily the most outlandish masala idea I've seen executed to near perfection.
இன்ட்ரோல ஆனா செம்ம இன்ட்ரோல்
is meant to be savored in theaters alone. In the hands of Rajamouli, Ramaraju and Bhim aren't historical figures but folk heroes, and that is where the meter at which NTR Jr. and Ram Charan perform is perfectly in sync with the screenplay. But for all the joy of a theater experience, I couldn't help but think of how Rajamouli, who's given Telugu cinema timeless villains such as Bhallala Deva and Katraj, has given his weakest villain in his biggest film. But the movie promised during promotions to bring back the glory of Indian cinema, and I can't help believe that it has delivered on that promise. Number 2 in this list is Bahubali: The Conclusion. This is the real Bahubali film with the meat of the story, and it pretty much knocks it out of the park. The stunning title sequence
எனக்கும் பாகுபலி 2 நல்லா பிடிச்சு. பாகுபலி ஃபர்ஸ்டோட பாகுபலி 2 நல்லா இருந்துச்சு எனக்கு.
For the first film, and Rajamouli wastes no time getting into the story only to never lose control. This film also heavily benefits from the chemistry between Prabhas and Anushka, who take no time to sell the romance. The confrontation scenes between Shivagami and Devasena are some of the best scenes in Rajamouli's filmography, and they're easily the best women characters in his films. Rajamouli sheds any doubts over his diminishing creativity with beautifully imagined sequences. There is a feeling of rushed emotions, and you wish Rajamouli lingered longer
இந்த சீனும் செம்ம சீன் ஆக்சுவலா. அந்த கோழை யாருக்கு அவரை வீரனாக்குவாரு கத்தி கொடுத்து.
It was a knockout punch that cemented Rajamouli's place in Indian film history. Number 1 in this list is Iga. Personally, I would say Iga is not just Rajamouli's
எனக்கு அதான் நம்பர் 1.
but it is also the best masala mass film to have come out of Indian cinema in my lifetime. Just the sheer audacity of the film shows
ஃபர்ஸ்ட் அந்த 15 minutes தவிர்த்து
anything and anyone. It is is almost a brash
நானி
signal
ஈகா வர வரைக்கும் செம்மையா இருக்கும்.
claiming that their star power alone sells films and
ஈகா
the audience aren't ready for experimental films. A fly that showed not just the boldness of the imagination of its filmmaker, but also Rajamouli demanded the audience come to a theatre, because ego on the small screen is not the same as watching a fly flex its muscles at the villain on the big screen, that too in packed theatres. This film has one of the simplest stories of Rajamouli's filmography. A young man, Nani, played by Nani, is killed by Sudeep because the former is in love with a miniature artwork expert, Bindu. Sudeep has his evil eye on the same woman. Nani is now reborn as a fly to take revenge on Sudeep to protect Bindu from him. Remember how Rajamouli said that he loves films with a villain bigger than the hero? Here he takes that principle very seriously and makes the hero as small as heroes can get. The idea to make Bindu a miniature art expert is a sign that Rajamouli isn't taking the audience's suspension of disbelief for granted. She needs to be a miniature art expert because when there is a Rocky-esque training montage in the second half, Bindu becomes an accomplice. Here, the audience finds it believable that this woman can help her fly with biceps and calves. Even in his most outlandish film, Rajamouli respects the audience and logic enough to sell us this crazy but thoroughly entertaining montage. And as if to make life more challenging, Rajamouli doesn't let the fly talk. It's mute. And at first you wonder why he chose such a hard path. Surely a voiceover or being dubbed over by an established actor could reduce the risk inherent in the film's premise. But then you realize he needs the fly to be mute for two of the most whistle-worthy scenes in the film. First, when Nani the fly reveals to Bindu who he really is using her tears. And second, during the fantastic interval sequence where the fly warns Sudeep by writing "I will kill you" on his car's windscreen. The warning from the fly is so amazing that you begin to feel sorry for the villain. That's how epic Iga was. It's outrageous on paper but fully entertaining on screen. And that to me sums up what Rajamouli's films are about. They can be accused of many things, but all of that comes from a single-minded determination to entertain the audience in the theatre. And he will do anything for that. Even make a fly the champion of mass and masala.
முகேஷ் மஞ்சுநாத் நல்லா பண்ணியிருந்தாரு. சூப்பர். அந்த டாப் 10 நான் டாப் 10 இல்லை, எவ்ரி ஃபிலிம் ரேங்க் டாப் 10ன்னு சொல்லிட்டேன். எவ்ரி ஃபிலிம் ரேங்க்ல நல்லா இருந்தது. ஆக்சுவலாக நான் வந்து எத்தனை நான் படம் பார்த்துருக்கேன்னா, மகதீரா, ஈகா, பாகுபலி 1, பாகுபலி 2, RRR 5 படம் பார்த்துருக்கேன். எனக்கு வந்து எந்த படி வைப்பேன்னா, எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு RRR தான் லாஸ்ட்டில் வரும். RRR பிடிச்சிருந்தது. பட் எனக்கு இது வரைக்கும் நான் பார்த்ததில்ல ராஜமௌலி சார் ஃபிலிமில் அதுதான் வந்து லாஸ்ட்டில் இருக்குது. இது அப்பா RRR ஃபேன்ஸ் கொஞ்சம் மன்னிச்சிருங்க. RRR நெக்ஸ்ட்டு வந்து பாகுபலி 1, அப்புறம் பாகுபலி 1, பாகுபலி 2, ஈகான்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ஆமாம், அந்தபடி தான் வரும் எனக்கு. பாகுபலி 1, பாகுபலி 2, மகதீரா, நெக்ஸ்ட் ஈகா எனக்கு ரொம்ப பிடிச்சிருந்தது. நானி, தமிழில் நானி, அந்த படம் தான் நல்லா இருந்தது. தமிழ் ரொம்ப சூப்பராக இருந்தது. எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு அதுதான் அவரோட ஸ்ட்ராங்கஸ்ட் ஃபிலிம்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன். ஏன்னா ஒரு வந்து மாசாக காமிச்சிருப்பார் அந்த படத்தில். ஓகே, மற்றபடி வேறு ஒன்றும் இல்லை. அவரை பற்றி நான் ஒன்றும் சொல்லணும்னு எதுவும் இல்லை. அதான் ஆஸ்கருக்கு செலக்ட் ஆகிருக்கு. மறுபடியும் ஃபஸ்ட்டு சொன்ன மாதிரி மறுபடியும் இன்னொரு வாட்டி விஷ் பண்ணியிருக்கலாம் ராஜமௌலி சாருக்கு. வேறு ஒன்றுமே, ராஜமௌலி சார் மட்டும் இல்லை, RRR டீம், ஹோல் டீமுக்கே விஷ் பண்ணிடலாம். மற்றபடி வேறு ஒன்றுமே இல்லை. இந்த மாதிரி நிறைய வீடியோ உங்களுக்கு பார்க்கணும்னு நினச்சிங்கன்னா சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணுங்கள். என்னென்ன வீடியோ நாங்கள் ரியாக்ட் பண்ணணும்னு நினைக்கிறீங்களோ அது கீழே கமெண்ட்டில் கொடுங்க. கமெண்ட்டில் பண்ணிங்கன்னா கண்டிப்பாக அதுக்கு நாங்கள் பார்த்து கண்டிப்பாக ரியாக்ட் பண்ணுவோம். வீடியோ பார்த்ததுக்கு நன்றி. பாய்.